Hello and welcome back to Party Trick Astrology. I'm Nina.
I'm Shaina.
And this is the 12th house generational placements video. Now, if you're just a person who stumbled across this video because you have a generational planet in the 12th house, hi, hello. But if you've been with us,
oh baby,
we got here. We made it. Black and white, slow motion collage of everything it took to get here. Who can say with a roll gold?
that was good, honestly.
Thank you.
If you stuck through this all, comment down below. Who can say
where the wind blows?
Where the wind blows. This is 12th house planets, Jupiter through Pluto. If you have a personal planet, which is Sun and Mars, we also have that video up. And if you're just curious about the 12th house in general, that video is up too. It'll be linked down below.
Yes, and if you don't have anything going on in your 12th house, but you want to know what your 12th house means in your chart, you can go to partytrickastrology.com/blog, maybe. Does that work?
I think so.
And you can check out the blog post on 12th house cusp rulers.
Yes, and guess what we are finally going to get to in 2020? The
Astrology course! Oh my god!
So
Finally!
wow.
You guys, this astrology course cost me a job, so you better sign up.
It did?
Yeah. Also, if this is up and it's not the new year already, and you need a calendar that tells you everything that's going on astrologically day by day, there's a link in the description.
And you do, let's admit it, you do!
If you're that bitch that everyone knows as the girl or guy that's into astrology and people are asking you when Mercury's in Gatorade, you need your calendar to let you know.
Expansion astrology, baby. We talked more about it in the other video. There'll be a link down below and there's a discount code. It's an affiliate code, if I'm not mistaken. Use it if you want. You don't have to. Nobody's gonna make you.
Get it, because you'll be better off with this calendar in your life. Let's admit it.
Because I'm really waiting for it. I'm like,
me too.
Really, I really
need it.
I needed to. I'm anticipating
Keep this in the
this.
video. Authentic conversation between us two.
Now it sounds false. That was very authentic. Jupiter in the 12th house, baby.
Jupiter in the 12th house is a double-edged sword because obviously Jupiter co-rules Pisces, so it's a very intuitive placement. So sometimes it's a bit much, but sometimes it's just the right amount of intuitive. It all really depends. One big party trick that we've seen with Jupiter in the 12th house is that for just like one not even personal planet in your 12th house, if you only have Jupiter in your 12th house, my god, does it still make you such a 12th house person?
Oh yeah, because it's Jupiter. It's expanding that house. It makes the world of a difference.
Yes. Again, refer back to 12th house in astrology video for all the pros and cons of the 12th house. You are a 12th house person and you probably very much experience these things. Deep escapism, deep existential wondering of what is the point of anything in the world. But I think a big thing about Jupiter in the 12th house is that it emphasizes this Jupiter giving, counsel, expansion, and jolliness, and it pairs it with this Pisces givingness, and it's the just right amount of intuitive where it really emphasizes this benevolentness, this desire to give and help other people and be very giving without really expecting anything in return or even crossing your mind that you would not be such a benevolent, giving, kind, generous person.
And I think that where this comes from is that when Jupiter is booted into your 12th house, it feels like you don't have any physical luck. You feel like people get handed a lot of stuff in certain areas of life and you just don't feel that way. So whatever you get handed, you're kind of one of those people that takes it. Like if somebody offers up something, you're going to say yes. you're not somebody who's going to say no to whatever it is that's offered. But at the same flip of the coin, because you don't have luck in any other area of life, you know how it feels to be shit out of luck. And so with whatever little bit you have, you're so much more willing to give because you feel like you're in that position all the time. So the second you get something or you have something to give to others, you're going to quickly give it. That's what makes that generosity, is that you know what it feels like to not have much.
Yeah, which is a super admirable quality, I think, of people with Jupiter in the 12th house, and how used they are to being without much and not having much luck on their side, and yet how much integrity they have in terms of what they give to people and how generous they are. And I think it is a super admirable quality. In terms of substance abuse, Jupiter in the 12th house is always something where me and Shaina are like, this person has issues.
Yeah.
This person really goes down the rabbit hole of substance abuse. What is it? And we're looking for what's in Pisces here.
Yeah,
where's Neptune? Is it strong? What's going on? And then at the end of the road, it's like none of that is happening, but Jupiter's in the 12th house. This really just like puts someone in that position to have substance abuse problems. But I even hesitate to say substance abuse problems because anyone who has Jupiter in the 12th house isn't really dealing with substance abuse as a problem.
Yeah.
It's a very joyous thing that they partake in, and they really enjoy it.
It gives them good luck. It gives them good things. It makes them happy. It doesn't give them this turmoil and this like drug abuse problem.
Yeah.
I even hesitate to say substance abuse. It's just like consistent substance use almost.
And it doesn't like destroy their life as much as someone who didn't have Jupiter in the 12th house engaging in these activities. Like, I knew someone who has Jupiter in the 12th house. Oh my god, this guy smoked 2 packs a day, was always snorting up, was always drinking, was just like consistently being that person. Anyone who saw him would be like, oh my god, when's this guy gonna die? 27 club, more like 20 now club. Like, what the hell is happening? And then he was like, oh, Nina, you know astrology, how am I gonna die? And I was like, oh, Mars in the 8th house, you're gonna have a bloody, unexpected death.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's not going to be lung cancer. It's not going to be all the drugs.
Probably not. Probably not. Also with Jupiter in the 12th house, like I said, because you don't find luck anywhere else and you're so much more willing to take whatever's given. Another big thing is you're so much more willing and open to try drugs and to try those kinds of things and substances. And also those are the things that just kind of happen to fall into your lap. You might just randomly stumble upon a bunch of drugs. Literally, like this happened to somebody and happens consistently to them. Almost you have like a sixth sense to like sniff it out. Like you'll be at a party and you'll be like, okay, let's sniff out who has drugs here, and like you'll be successful. You'll like randomly wind up in the coke room. You know what I mean? And you just stumbled into it. That's the kind of luck you get.
It's not always drugs. It's not always that kind of escapism. No. Sometimes you stumble across really enlightening spiritual experiences. Sometimes you're even a bit susceptible to spiritual movements and stuff like that. I think that this position really is the epitome of kind of Alcoholics Anonymous, where you go down that road of just like using and abusing until you need to shift. Alcoholics Anonymous, if you don't know, has kind of a Jesus-y tone to it.
A huge Jesus-y tone.
Huge Jesus-y tone. So you need to shift your mindset from following this kind of Jupiter in the 12th house guidance of substances and shift that into, oh, Jupiter in the 12th house also means spirituality and all of that.
You got the Sagittarius and the Pisces going on, and those kind of rule both ends of the religious spectrum and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. So
Jupiter is the planet of counsel. The 12th house has a lot to do with spirituality, spiritual counsel. That's what's going on.
A big thing with this placement as well is because your Jupiter, your happiness, your optimism, your pizzazz and spunk for life is like locked away. This is a placement that easily can lean towards depression because you don't get to access your Jupiter. I know somebody very personally with this placement, and they say many times, like, I only feel human when I'm, like, somehow intoxicated.
Yeah.
Like, that's when I much more feel normal and feel happiness and feel much more of a will to live. And it can be that kind of situation because you can't access this kind of, like, endless source of happiness. You don't have that. Just can feel empty, and you can feel depressed very easily.
Yeah, and whatever's in your 12th house, you can access better when you're doing 12th house activities, which is escapism, meditation, but also meditation is really hard, and drinking alcohol is not that hard.
Especially for Jupiter in 12th house, they want the easy way. They don't want to try. It's not like Saturn in 12th house, where they're not going to try real hard, figure shit out.
So that's where kind of the dependence can come in, where if you're accessing your lovely, benevolent nature when you're engaging in 12th house activities such as drinking, then you're obviously going to want to do that a lot. Jupiter is expansion, it's excess in a lot of ways, but also maybe you just feel really good when you're helping other people. Maybe you just feel really good when you're doing yoga.
Helping the homeless, helping the less fortunate, like these are people who have a very big push and want and will to do that.
It all depends on also what's going on in the rest of your chart.
Also, this can be somebody who grew up in a situation where their religious views or their spiritual views were not deemed acceptable, or they grew up like maybe in a household or a family where they did not agree with the religion that was put onto them, and so they had to kind of lock away their personal views and their personal opinions for sake of the household or the family. And this can turn somebody into somebody who is very against anything spiritual and esoteric of that nature. As much as it leans into it, it also leans away to it just as much, because Jupiter, as we mentioned, rules spirituality, and so with it locked away, you can very much be the person who's like, science only. If you cannot prove this, I do not want to know about it kind of situation. Not that these are closed-minded people, they're very open-minded people most of the time, but they just don't like to say, yes, I believe this, and this is my denomination or religion. They don't want to be pegged like that. It's like that thing where it's like, I'll hear you out, but I'm not going to say I believe in anything.
Yeah, and their sense of spirituality and kind of their guiding point of hope and meaning in the world, it's not as obvious. They need to dig a little bit more to find it out. They need to go through a little bit more to find it out, because it is in the last house and it is in the subconscious house. It's not something that they're like, oh, I suddenly know everything that I believe in. It's more of a journey.
You want to be somebody who is big and talkative and social and friendly and everybody knows you and you get along and blah, 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 but it can be very hard and exhausting to do that. And that is especially emphasized if your Jupiter is conjunct your ascendant rather than just in the 12th house. In the 12th house alone, you might have all these dreams of being on the stage, but never really try it out. You know, you want to be a performer, you want to be this big personality, but you don't have any way to access or try it at all. Whereas if it's conjunct your ascendant, you have much more of an ability to entertain and be social, but it just wears you so thin so easily.
Yeah. And then also if it's conjunct your ascendant, other people have the expectation for you to be that person for longer than you necessarily have the capability to be that person.
Like you can very much feel like people expect you to entertain, and you can be very exhausted by that. Like, I like putting on a show, I like entertaining people, I like having this big sense of humor and blah 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 blah, but it just wears you thin very easily.
Yeah, with it conjunct the ascendant, people expect you to be a lot more easygoing than you necessarily also have the capability to be all the time.
Yeah, like you just want to take a nap. You know what I mean? This can also be somebody who spends a lot of their money on spiritual things. Like they might have like so many incense or all this stuff, crystals, and do that kind of self-care kind of situation. Like, oh, I got a face mask and that's self-care. Or like I got a nice comfy blanket, and just not very good with money. Very much spend towards stuff that's not necessary for this world, like drugs. Like you can spend a lot of money on drugs very easily. You're not thinking like, oh, my rent's due. Like, no, you're not thinking that. You're like, oh, I want this now, and this is like instant gratification. This makes me feel better or shelters me or allows me to access my Jupiter now. Paying rent doesn't allow me to do all those nice fun things. That's not an enjoyable way to spend my money. I want to spend my money on this fun instant gratification thing.
Yeah, because your planet of access is in the least practical house in the entire chart.
Yeah. This is somebody who can really get deep and understand their subconscious mind, but also those of other people, especially if it's conjunct the ascendant. Also, you might have difficulty keeping secrets. You have to look to the sign. If it's conjunct your ascendant and it's in like an air sign, you're just going to tell everybody's everything. All of your shit's going to be out on display. The person that I know has this in Scorpio, and while he's great at keeping his own secrets, he was in situations where everybody else would spread his secrets around and everybody would know his business. Even though he kept it to himself, it didn't matter because it was always all out there. Huge thing with this placement is you'll do the Jupiter thing of going down to the self-undoing to the very end, and you are at just the end of your straw of being able to still survive.
It's like the pinnacle, but down here.
Yeah, exactly. And out of nowhere, it's like some magical spirit guide angel will come and sweep you up and save you. And this can happen multiple times in your life. It can feel like there's somebody special watching over you, but they're not there all the time. They only come in
when you're at your wit's end.
Exactly, yes, at your most dire moment. You know, even to the point where you honestly might be suicidal and there might be just the last second thing that comes in and just kind of sweeps you up and saves you.
You're like, where were you this whole time?
Yeah, you're like, where were you? Because like everybody else, like, you know, they've reached their Jupiter at some other house and they've saved them before they've gotten there, but not you. You've gotten all the way to the end of the chart before you get fucking saved. I don't want to say you're somebody who's for sure spiritual or for sure like denies it. You might even go through like major waves in your life, but you just subconsciously attract hoo-ha spiritual people. And also this kind of protects you and gives you an aid against hidden enemies. Maybe you don't have many hidden enemies, maybe they're just very much out in the open. Paranormal events can happen, a lot of experiences like that, but I feel like they're never really scary unless you have other stuff in your 12th house. If you just have Jupiter in your 12th house, you might have very almost like positive spiritual and paranormal situations and events that happen, or you just might not have any, and in a weird way that's kind of lucky in itself as well, because you know, hauntings are scary.
You're probably the kind of person who doesn't actively identify with being a spiritual person or actively identify with like believing in the paranormal, but someone will come into your life and be like, hey, I'm so into this stuff, and you'll be like, you know what?
You know, maybe
I kind of fucks with it.
Major dreams, you sleep a lot, you nap a lot. Like, this is somebody who has a crazy capability to just like knock out and just completely get engulfed in their dreams. You sleep a lot, you relax a lot, and you indulge in a kind of laziness, 12th house escapism quite frequently and very easily. Like, these are people who can just like zone out and do nothing. A Gemini in 12th house, I can't do that. These people can just like watch a marathon straight the whole night and be thoroughly entertained and enthralled the whole time. And sometimes you can go too far with the whole giving thing to the point where you might have kind of like a martyr syndrome and you be a little bit too self-sacrificing and kind of overestimate what you have and then wind up with nothing for yourself. People can easily take advantage of that and suck you dry of your resources or even just of your energy in general.
On to Saturn in the 12th house. With Saturn in the 12th house, this creates a kind of dual thing where on the one hand, this is the kind of person who very much feels like the issues that they have in their life, the challenges that they face, aren't for anyone else's eyes. They're things that they need to deal with by themselves.
In isolation, alone.
And so they almost keep it hidden from other people, but it's lingering down in their subconscious. But again, with the 12th house being so subconscious and so expansive, it's very difficult for you to deal with your issues. They seem very overwhelming. Again, it's so boundless. Saturn in the 10th house, like what we have, it's like, oh great, I know exactly where my lessons are going to show up, and this is who's going to give me trouble, and this, that, and the other. In the 12th house, it's just like, oh my god, shit could happen to me at any time, can come from anywhere. I don't understand these lessons that are getting thrown at me. I'm overwhelmed by them. And because they're kind of all around surrounding you in the ether, it's very hard to focus and just be like, okay, this issue, gonna tackle it like a whack-a-mole. This issue, gonna tackle it like a whack-a-mole. It's much more of just like, they're just always floating around me. I don't know how to deal with them. I feel like I can't talk to anyone about them. I feel like they're completely my own problem and no one can help me, and I just need to be in isolation and just like figure this shit out by myself. And that's the only way that you are going to be able to address your issues, is if you just shut yourself off and really try to focus on yourself, because it's really hard for you to focus on practical problem solving in terms of your challenges and lessons and obstacles thrown your way.
Yeah, I feel like there's a really mean subconscious voice in your head. A very negative Nancy that just kind of lives there and tells you bad, critical stuff all the time, but you don't really know where it's coming from. This is somebody who came into this world with a lot of heavy karma, and they don't really know why or how it came to be. Also, probably your mom had a lot of struggles while she was carrying you. Maybe she was ill, or there's like a lot of bad things happening to her, or she could have been ignoring all the problems that were going on around her. You just were not born into an easy, comfortable atmosphere. Maybe you were a kid that wasn't planned or prepared for, or you were so planned for and so prepared for, and it's just like a lot of complications came up, or there was just a lot of stress put on the mother for some unknown reason. Like maybe she was like, I need to have a perfect baby. I need to be perfect while I carry this child. And so she just had a lot of stress and anxiety, and you just carry this constant kind of subconscious stress and anxiety that you don't know why you have it in your head for. And you just might subconsciously pick up other people's issues and you're not really sure why, but you carry these things around with you all the time. They almost have this kind of air to them of like, you don't know what I've been through, you know what I mean? Because they've gone through all their issues only with themselves and alone, probably. When people do that, they kind of carry, like, how would you explain it? Like this air of, well, I've been through shit. I don't know.
What I was gonna say is that sometimes, because with Saturn in the 12th house, the planet of lessons and obstacles and restrictions in the house of subconscious, it can sometimes create some people that have a bit of a victim mentality, because obstacles and lessons and restriction are not something that's at the forefront of your brain. It lives more in your subconscious. So when it manifests practically in the physical world and you're faced with your obstacles, you might have this kind of feeling of, my life shouldn't be so hard. Why do I have to deal with this?
This is not my fault.
Yeah. And then in a 12th house state, maybe if you're under the influence, maybe if you're just alone in your room at night trying to go to sleep, you can suddenly have this extremely critical perception of yourself and the world and think to yourself, why does my life have to be so hard? You might get into this mindset of, nobody understands what I'm going through. Nobody understands how hard my life is. Nobody understands
period.
This, that, and the other. And sometimes it's a lot of little things that just add up. Sometimes it's big things. You can face a lot of challenges from hidden enemies.
Oh, yes.
And to have people show up in your life specifically to give you very hard
tough
lessons.
Love.
Tough love, tough lessons. Those are the more fateful connections of your life, you find. Are people really coming to
destroy it. The people who destroy your life are the people that feel like you're fated to meet.
Yeah. And Shaina and I were two people for a particular Saturn in the 12th house.
Yeah. He was just so much. He was so much.
Very much exemplified this whole victim mentality over people not understanding how much he had been through.
Oh, you're not watching it.
I went to school with this person, and we had every single class with this person for an entire semester, us three all together. We were very much fateful people in his life to give him a lot of tough lessons.
Yeah, and a big thing that I want to mention real quick with Saturn in the 12th house is that you have a huge skepticism to you. Like spirituality and things that are unknown, you're like, fuck that, at least when you're younger. Maybe when you hit 30 is when you realize how much you need it, because you do. You need it more than most people. But up until then, you're going to be very much like, fuck that shit. And here are these two little girls coming in to nonstop talk and roast about astrology, and the Saturn in the 12th house was
can't handle it.
Not having it.
This person was very sensitive specifically to this entire idea of you don't know how much that I've been through. You don't know me from my astrology chart, or you can't judge me because you don't know what I've been through. Like, for example, this one girl who was also in all of our classes together said that she thought that smoking made you a weaker person. And he took a lot of offense to this because he said, well, you don't know what I've been through to be smoking. It's not that I'm weak, it's that I need it because you don't know what I've been through, blah, blah, blah. So many people in that class smoked. Nobody had the same issue that he had with her saying that smoking makes you a weaker person. Because guess what? Let's give you a pseudonym. Guess what, Charlie? Plenty of people have been through lots of shit. Plenty of people don't have to smoke.
Those two don't go hand in hand.
You're not the only person who's been through, but whatever. I digress. But then he got into this very 12th house state in which he was kind of burying his soul. He completely broke down, had a meltdown, was sweating through his dress shirt on the floor, screaming and crying,
and
doing
cat-cow.
Like, he's on all fours and his spine is just going. It was more than just cat-cow. It's what sometimes people call drunken cat-cow, where you're also moving like forward and back.
Yeah,
and it was
like,
such a vivid image in my head.
Quite the experience to watch.
The whole time he was essentially saying, you don't know what I've been through, I go through so much. And he was listing his problems. And I remember sitting there being like, that's not that big a deal.
It creates a very hard time dealing with any tough stuff. And you've been through a lot of tough stuff, but it doesn't give you the capacity. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That doesn't really apply here. It's like, what doesn't kill you fucks you up a lot. You know, and you might live through it, but it's going to leave a big dent in you, and you might not come out better the other side.
I think it also has to do a lot with the fact that the 12th house is a very karmic house.
Yeah.
So it's another example of your lessons, you just really don't know where they come from. They're not coming from a tangible place. They're maybe coming from some karmic retribution in your past lives, or just from the ether, and you can't make any rhyme or reason with your knowledge of the physical world. It's something that your lessons are something incomprehensible to the naked eye, to the human brain. You know, it's just that deep, and for that reason, that hard to deal with. In a simple psychological breakdown of why this produces, and not necessarily, but sometimes why this sometimes produces people who have such a hard time and have this whole like victimization mentality and you don't know what I've been through, is simply from the fact of if you don't open up about your problems to other people, it's going to wear you down. It's going to really...
That's what I was trying to say earlier. Yeah, exactly. I haven't experienced anything, any hardships with anybody. And that's just going to grow so tense inside of you. Sharing is caring, baby. Also with this placement, probably not very good experiences with drugs and alcohol. Like, you've probably had a lot of harsh and heavy situations when you're either under the influence, or from somebody in your life being under the influence, or with addiction, or just with those kinds of things. This is not the kind of situation like Jupiter in the 12th house where you just have all these great experiences with drugs and it makes you so happy. And no, this is the like catastrophe, ruined my life, like
most
all
likely
those...
to have a bad trip.
Yes.
Ruins your entire psyche for the rest of your life.
Yes, like this is the placement where I would say be very careful with what you experiment with, and be very careful of the kind of things you put your body through. Even with like doctor medication and pills, like be very careful with everything. And I feel like these are the kind of people that have those crazy once in 1,000 people cases of X happening on this, or B or C, you know what I mean? Or being in prison from drugs, or being locked up, being in juvenile because of those situations, or even like drunk driving incidents. Like, this is just not a good place to experiment freely with that stuff.
Yeah, or religion.
Yes.
Spiritual experiences. And maybe not even just in your life, but in your past lives. Although you are very skeptical with this placement, so you don't necessarily believe in past lives.
Yeah.
But we're here to be those hidden enemies that teach you your lessons.
What's up, baby? What's up? With Saturn conjunct the ascendant, but in your 12th house, people are going to be like, this person's such a hard worker, this person's so responsible, they're always on it, and you want to appear that way, and you try to appear that way, but in reality, you're a mess. We have a client that we're trying to do a reading for that has Saturn in the 12th house. We've just had a lot of issues with his responsibility factor in trying to get this reading to happen. I wouldn't think that it would be an issue because he's got it conjunct the ascendant, but in the 12th house. It's
And
not in the first house.
On first impression, you look at this guy and you're like, leading man.
Got it
give
together.
him the responsibility.
Yeah,
He's got it. He's a father. He can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has dad vibes all over him.
Oh,
It's very
yeah.
Saturn conjunct your ascendant.
But in reality, this person's super irresponsible.
I also think that Saturn conjunct the ascendant, if you are this kind of person who might lean towards the more victimization, you don't know what I've been through kind of thing, it can really have this image of, you don't know what I've been through, and everyone around is like, no, but like, we get that it's something, because you won't shut up about how much you've been through.
Oh, this can create a major hermit or like a monk even. Just somebody who really, really can isolate themselves or make up excuses as to why they don't go out. Like the two Sun in the 12th house people that we knew that from school was like, oh, I'm too old to hang out with you guys and go out and stuff. But in reality, people of the same age were doing it. Like, that had nothing to do with it. But to them, this Saturn in the 12th house just made them want to, I think, isolate themselves and find excuses as to why they can't be out and go out with everybody kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. Because the planet of productivity is in the subconscious house that you only really access on your own, engaging in kind of like escapism tendencies, you're the kind of person that in order to be productive, you probably have to literally unplug your internet, very much get yourself into the zone in order to focus, because focus and concentration and discipline can be a hard point for you to reach. In the real world, you can get very distracted.
But this can also be a situation like anything in the 12th house where it ebbs and flows. To where if you find yourself in that state of concentration, you are unstoppable. Like, you can get so much done. You can be a medical student that follows in the footsteps of their family and does 6 years of school and da-da-da-da, but then doesn't use the degree. You know what I mean? Like, it can very much ebb and flow to where you can produce so much stuff at one point because you're so focused and streamlined to where you just can't do anything and you sit on the couch all day. You might be the person everybody comes to with their problems, and you might feel like you help out everybody, but you just do not have any of that help for yourself or anybody to turn to. This is the classic person who's like very Tumblr themed meme of like when you help all your friends but you like don't have anybody to call to help you. You know what I mean? Like that kind of vibe, unfortunately. It was like a trend. Yeah, it was like a Tumblr trend, I guess.
That's why this kind of person is like the ultimate monk, because going back to that concentration thing, like you do have a great capacity to concentrate and be disciplined, all those Saturnian qualities, but more when you're engaging in a 12th house thing like monk-ish spirituality and isolation and stuff like that. Discipline is one of those things that you don't necessarily have an outside source teaching you.
Maybe a lack of a father, probably.
Lack of a father.
We should have said
How
that
do we
way
not
earlier.
get
What the
how
fuck?
do we have to say this now?
Lack of a father! Oh my god!
No fatherly no
not to
discipline.
be found. Now, if it's conjunct the ascendant, you might have been that person that took up the responsibility because the father was not there, so you had to be the responsible one in the family, you know what I mean? Or maybe it was conjunct the ascendant, maybe he was there, but he was at work all the time, so you just felt this omnipresent feeling where he never taught you how to be a man, but yet he's such a strong businessman, but you don't have any of that, you know what I mean? Even if you're a female, like, both genders need to be taught both sides, I think. You know what I mean?
Because if it's in your 12th house but conjunct your ascendant, any planet that's in your 12th house but conjunct your ascendant becomes so much more of a mask than something that's conjunct your ascendant in the first house.
Yes.
Because the first house is a mask, but it is more conscious and like part of you if it's sitting in your first house than if it's in your 12th house. It's in your subconscious, but you're imitating it. You're putting it on.
Uranus in the 12th house. Your mom probably had a very weird experience or was uprooted. Maybe she even moved when she was pregnant with you. This could be a situation where it's like you were born somewhere but then you were raised somewhere else. Very much transplanted, uneasy situation, or there was just a lot going on. This can also indicate like anxieties while you were in the womb. You know, just like lots of change and you weren't sure what was going on, or your mom just had a unconventional pregnancy. Like maybe you were a test tube baby, or
Ooh, that is so Uranus in the 12th
Yeah.
house. It's technology, it's innovation.
Or even like that Phoebe situation from Friends.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have two moms, maybe you have two dads, adopted, whatever. But a big thing with this is you are the weirdo in the family and you do not know where you came from. But there you are. And it is very uncomfortable for you to express that stuff growing up because you just knew how different you were and how strange you were and how much you did not fit in. Like, what's the black sheep of the family? And so that was repressed in you and not allowed to come out. And it'll come out in waves. Especially if it's conjunct the ascendant, it is very hard to hide how weird you are. If it's not conjunct the ascendant, it's probably a little bit easier, but everybody feels that vibe, you know?
Maybe your mom had a more new age pregnancy in a different way, as in she wanted to experiment with, I don't know, whatever was trendy but not trendy. You know, not traditional, but also not too trendy. I don't know. There's so many things going on in motherhood, people having babies, all different kinds of
different
ways.
ideas.
And that might have been a theme going on with your mother's pregnancy with you. There is that kind of like subconscious weirdness going on with you, but I think it also has a similar pairing of this Aquarian water-bearing nature with Uranus in the 12th house, this benevolent Pisces house. It does make you someone who is very driven to give and provide for others. The pairing is sort of like spiritually evolutionary minded, you know, evolving the collective in a spiritual way, getting in touch with spirituality for the purpose of self-evolution and world evolution.
Yeah, these are people that are so open to things, open to new things, new ideas, new religions. Whatever it is you bring to the table, they're willing to hear it out. This is also somebody with a strong intuition, but it's not as like concrete or consistent as most 12th house placements, especially personal placements. It's very erratic. You can't really trust it. You don't really know where it's coming from, but you get and you pick up on these weird images or messages, or your dreams will sometimes tell things, but it's unreliable. So like sometimes you might be like, my gut feeling is telling me this and I know it, and you do it and you're right. You're absolutely right and you did the right thing. And then other times you're like, yeah, this is what my gut is telling me, but in reality that was the wrong choice, I guess, or you feel like it was the wrong choice, and it just, you can't trust it, you know?
Yeah. Uranus is more Cartesian minded than a lot of people give it credit for, so it's not a very intuitive position to put this very spiritual, artistically minded, sort of ethereal thinking kind of house, and then this more Cartesian, straightforward, scientific minded planet in there, because there's kind of a bit of a battle within you of like, oh, do I really buy into all this woojie stuff? But on the other hand, you can buy into the other woojie stuff for the sake of humanitarian efforts. Like, you might be very skeptical about going into a sauna and rebirthing yourself from the womb of Mother Earth and drinking ayahuasca and then writing down your visions in a journal to go take to a past life regression therapist and find, you know, like that's not necessarily your cup of tea, but you might be interested in spirituality from a more psychological perspective or from a more practical perspective.
Getting into the mind.
Yeah.
It's more about investigating the mind, and what can be proven is what you're more comfortable with. Even in the sense of it feels like it can be proven to you, you know?
Holistic medicine might be a big thing.
Yes.
Because that's where
those two things collide.
Yeah.
You know, the holistic, the spiritual, but then the medicine, so it's still that practical. Uranus, there's a bit of Saturn in there.
Yeah, Uranus is forward moving. I almost want to say that it's like a cardinal planet, but it rules a fixed sign, but then the fixed sign that it rules is also co-ruled by a planet that rules a cardinal sign.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So it's fixed in the way that it's moving, you know?
Yeah.
And it's forward.
It's on a track.
If Uranus is not conjunct your ascendant, you might not see yourself as somebody that's weird, but you just know you subconsciously are, and you don't really know why people do what they do and how they do it, and you just have a natural, odd way of going about things that you don't feel as odd because it's what's natural to you kind of situation.
Or sometimes you just lay your head on the pillow at night and you're like, is this weird that I do this? Picking your nose past a certain age. Does everyone still pick their nose? Or is it just me?
As with any 12th house planet, it can create isolation, but more of an alienation kind of feeling, to where you're so weird, you do not fit in. As much as you want to be a part of the group and as much as you want to be part of the community, there's no place where you feel like you can find your foothold. Like, these people might have a very weird music taste considering what they look like, or they get along with these kinds of people even though they're raised around these kinds of people, and they're just always the one that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, and because of that, it can make them feel very uncomfortable in a lot of social situations, and that can lead to a lot of alienation and isolation.
These are more of the kind of people, if it's not conjunct the ascendant particularly, where it's like, you don't know really who I am.
You can't peg them.
Yeah, you can't peg this person.
You can't put them in a group and say they're this.
Yeah, because everything that makes them an individual, that makes them unique, that makes them them, is hidden and subconscious. So this is probably like the ultimate, oh my God, Miss Alabama is so pristine and pretty and nice, but she can throw a punch.
Yes.
I never knew that.
Yes, exactly. These people also have very awkward sleeping schedules. They might even like be nocturnal. Whatever it is just odd schedule going on.
If you've ever read the book Daily Habits is a very boring coffee table book. Not a thrilling read. Would not recommend it as an audiobook especially. It just lists like different artists and their daily habits, which is like cute. Coffee table.
Right.
What did Chopin do day to day? But if you read it through, you'll realize that every single artistic person in the world is like nocturnal, basically. Nobody has a productive schedule.
Dude, I feel that. Ever since a kid, I'm like, you expect me to wake up at like 7 a.m.? I'm going to sleep at 2.
And then internalized capitalism, but still gotta wake up at 7.
That's true. Super susceptible to religious cults or institutions.
Collectives.
Just collectives and secret organizations.
Secret. Hidden.
Your experiences with drugs are like a roll of the dice. If you are into that. I don't think Uranus in the 12th house points towards one or the other. If you do try substances or experiment, it's like a roll of the dice. Sometimes you'll have a great, amazing, transformative experience, and other times it'll ruin your life. So you need to be very careful. But I will say most of these people have the mentality of, I'm going to go on the journey with it. Usually these people don't have the kind of like Saturn in the 12th house as much of like, I'm going to try to not, and especially because a lot of people with Uranus in the 12th house in our generation have Neptune in the 12th house, so that might be what I'm picking up on. They're normally like, I'll let it go with it and we'll see where it takes me.
I think Uranus in the 12th house on its own is not likely to be a consistent drug user, but is probably likely to be like, oh, Miranda, you've done Molly? Yeah, I tried a time. Why not?
Like one time when I was in high school, like,
I don't need it to go to the club, but like,
I
tried it. Yeah, whatever. And then you're like, Miranda, I would never know this about you. Well, I don't know. I guess it's just my Uranus in the 12th house.
Oh, these people also can have like a different personality when they're drunk. Somebody totally different might come out, but in reality, that's just them. That's just who they really are. But to the outside, it's like, who the fuck is this person?
It's me.
You also might be nervous to show how like carefree and independent you are, and this might very much stifle your ability to kind of feel like you can say yes to a lot of things if it's not conjunct your ascendant. If it's conjunct your ascendant, then I would say you feel like you always need to come across carefree and independent and unique, but in reality it exhausts you and you might not actually be like that as much. As with I always say, it kind of goes like this.
Yes. Uranus is a very fast, energetic, energetic is the right word. It's just like buzzing with electricity. So that can be kind of something difficult to deal with when you're just trying to sit alone in your own peace of mind. It's just like moving all over the place and thinking like buzzing and future tripping. This is definitely the kind of person who will go future tripping in their mind. But it's also quite exhausting to engage in that with other people, to be this energetic, buzzing kind of, let's do this and go that and be impulsive. That's kind of exhausting to do around other people, but then when you find that you're alone with your own thoughts, you're like, oh my god, let me plan out everything about my life ever, but except that I can't, because I'm not in a position to plan everything out right now, because I am supposed to be going to sleep, and it's just gonna suddenly it's just all hitting me when I'm sitting in class trying to learn about physics. I guess it's your fault, Mr. Maxwell, for making the class so boring, putting me straight into my 12th house.
Classic like crazy mad scientist vibes. Also, you're just gonna rebel against prisons, institutions. What's the word for like anything that's like has like set out rules? and restrictions and guidelines.
Anything that has set out rules, restrictions, and guidelines.
You're going to be a big mental health advocate.
And it's all about awareness and inclusivity.
Yes.
Especially because Uranus has so much to do with like medical advancement. Don't make people feel ashamed for taking medication.
Yes, exactly. Also, if it's near your ascendant, you probably change your appearance a lot, but it's kind of that vibe of like, why is your hair green? I don't know. I just felt like making my hair green. Why did you decide to be this today? I don't know. I just felt like doing this today.
Yeah, so you can't pinpoint why your appearance, how that correlates to your individuality. It just seems very random, and you don't even know why you're changing your appearance so much.
This could be like a rebel without a cause.
Yeah.
You might have been bullied because, you know, Uranus is the weirdo, and the weirdos at school get bullied, and so you feel very self-conscious about how weird you are.
So you hide your weirdness.
I also put like superhero wannabe, because like you want to like save the world.
Yeah.
And you want to be this crazy weird in suits and costumes and have these powers.
But you're not brave enough because when you were a child, they were like, don't be an individual and stand out. Don't you dare. So you're like, in a perfect world, I would be a hero and stand out, but psychological patterns ingrained in me as a child. Not helping out there. Sorry, fam.
Neptune in the 12th house.
Now this one is even more intuitive. It just makes you just such a fucking 12th house person. I don't even know what to say. Just
like all that stuff that we said about the 12th house, you're all of it. You got all those escapism issues. You love the whole self-undoing thing. Super psychic. Oh my god, martyr to the nth degree. You've absorbed everybody's problems, everybody's emotions. You get so drained, so tired, so exhausted, so easily.
Definitely more of an introvert who needs to live and indulge in a big fantasy world. Has a very rich inner life. Very rich, not real, out of this world kind of inner life, imaginary world. Definitely someone who has the makings of being a very creative person, specifically in that kind of dystopian genre. Someone who has the ability to write an entire series of novels that has to do with this very deeply crafted, rich, but entirely unrealistic, sprouted from the roots of their brain type of dystopian world. Huge potential for creativity.
A musician, artist.
Yeah. To the point of excess, to the point of being that kind of person in that book Daily Habits that just like rolls out of bed at 5 p.m. and then stays up till 7 a.m. and just like a little out of touch with this world, but it's because it's at the expense of this great creative inner world that you have going on. You probably feel this weird exhaustion that you don't know where it comes from because, unless other things in your chart point to this isn't a placement that necessarily makes someone particularly active and particularly like
physical,
engaged in the outside world.
Yeah, very much hermit.
The minimal engagement that you might have to do on a day-to-day can drain you. Again, just being very much an introvert.
This also is somebody who is very either religious or spiritual or just very open and always been exposed to those kinds of things. Your grandma might have been a psychic, or you know, your whole family is very religious and you grew up in the church and you feel like you have this extreme connection to God. Astrology, like, it makes sense as to why you found this video if you have this placement, because you've probably always been open to it, always kind of believed it, and just naturally a very open mind because you feel presences and things that aren't there, and you very much believe in the unseen.
You're most likely to, I think, be the most in tune with your spiritual journey, most likely to believe in past lives, most likely to feel strange connections to things or places or people, or believe in soulmates, or find soulmates, or find hidden enemies, and feel kind of palpable karma in the world, or feel a connection to a past that is not even tangible, like in past lives. This is just like such a huge party trick. You'd read this on Astro Cafe. Loves water.
Yeah, just clear everything, clairvoyant, sentient,
audience.
Yeah, whatever.
Claire Summers.
Crazy.
Lumiere Tarot. Pick a card readings. I fall asleep to her voice. I don't even know what the predictions are. I'm just like, Yes, Claire Summers.
Crazy dreams, lucid dreams, maybe even like a sleep paralysis if it's like badly aspected. You can just very easily tune into the collective unconscious and your subconscious, and you just have such an active inner life. But also at the same time, because even though you have all these things, the 12th house is still repressed and it's still not allowed to be expressed. A lot of what we've been talking about with 12th house placements is like growing up in your family, this was not allowed. I don't think it's so much as your family, but I think it's so much just the world.
Yeah.
The world does not want anything to do, or at least especially America, does not really want anything to do with crazy Neptune and the 12th house people, you know, in the general consensus. And I say that like that, right? Because, well, you kind of are a little crazy, but who's to say what? Who's to say what?
We live in a very productive minded world
and physical.
That's not exactly what's going on with you.
So anybody with Neptune in the 12th house, it just feels like it's always going to be reinforced that if you go and you say that you believe in ghosts, there's always going to be major skeptics there, seeming like the smart ones. You know what I mean? Like, you deal with a lot of stuff. Like, if you watch BuzzFeed Unsolved, you're Ryan, not Shane. Like, Ryan has a Pisces moon. He always is like, I believe in ghosts. This is real. But Shane's like, he has some kind of Taurus energy. He's like, all this is bullshit, right? And he seems like the smart one because in this world we're like, yeah, he's like using logic. But fucking Ryan's over there feeling all this shit, picking up all these crazy things, and it's like, who's to deny that what he's experiencing is not real? You know?
I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent. You know, people who are just like, I'll believe it when I see it. And then they see a ghost and they're like, there must be something behind the scenes as to why this there.
That's Shane. That's Shane. And it's like, fuck you.
Did you say you'd believe it when you see it? Well, it's probably something unseen going on behind the scenes. Whereas we're here, like, there's something unseen going on behind the scenes. We don't know why this works, but this is why. But it does, and it resonates with a lot of people. I'll believe it when I see it. Here's a ghost. There's something behind the scenes. You know?
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, you are always ready to solve everybody's problems, but my God, you not want to solve your own. And that's what you do as a way to not solve your own problems and to not deal with whatever shit you're dealing with. You deal with everybody else's shit. Major counselor, major psychologist, or just in general, the friend that everybody comes to cry on their shoulder.
A professional hugger. Professional soother. A human soother.
Yeah. And like, you came into this world with the spiritual gates wide open, and unfortunately a lot of bad shit can fall in as well. So you can be susceptible to negative energy and, you know, kind of more demons, or I don't know what's it, like black, dark magic kind of stuff. You're susceptible to both.
Bad vibes.
As much as you're susceptible to all the good vibes in the world, you're also unfortunately susceptible to all the bad vibes in the world. Yeah. This can also be a position where, as if you get famous, this isn't necessarily a fame indicator. It's definitely like an artist indicator, creative person indicator. But if you do get famous, this is somebody who's like icon status. They're an enigma. Oh my God, you see them on the walls everywhere, and for some reason everybody fantasizes and dreams to be this person and blah blah blah, but in reality they're just a struggling artist and their life was really hard and they went through all this shit, but all we see them through are these rose tinted glasses of, oh, but they were so pretty or perfect or creative or spiritual or helpful or this and that, and oh, they're just an icon.
You probably have some aspirations for fame. I'm mainly saying this because reality probably disappoints you a lot.
Yes.
And you can very much find happiness and solace in creating a alternate reality that you just go to in your head. And were that to actually become your reality, it would disappoint you. So it's almost better that your dreams are dreams and that reality is reality and your dreams don't come true, because if they came true, then oh my God, you wouldn't have any more dreams to go back to escape your reality.
Also, just mental health issues up the wazoo. Yeah, just dealing with a lot of shit. I literally wrote drugs. You feel responsible for everyone and everything that happens. This can be somebody who, it's like, if you're in school and little Timmy gets embarrassed, like, you feel the embarrassment for them and you almost feel responsible then for the bullies making fun of them. Like, you just feel like you need to take care of everything at all times, and it needs to be okay because you just absorb and feel everybody's everything.
It's almost like it's happening to you. And so that's why you feel that kind of responsibility. That's how empathetic and clairsentient you are. And that's why Pisces has this big trope of self-sacrificing and martyrdom and just giving and giving and giving and being very benevolent. Big party trick. Why do you relate to Pisces memes? This is why. No matter your sun sign, always check the Pisces memes it will hit.
Yeah, it will hit
It'll
hard.
hit right here.
This is people who you need to build walls, you need to build barriers. You do not want to have any, and you feel like you don't have any, and you almost feel like it's rude to put up some kind of wall. But if you don't, everybody will take advantage of you, and you almost feel like you're in this world to be taken advantage of. But that's very much not true. You need to set some kind of standard for how people treat you.
Yeah, you probably hear this over and over, like, oh my god, Dua Lipa singing to you, rule 1, don't pick up the phone. You know he's only calling because he's drunk and alone. You're like, okay, Dua Lipa told me I've got to build up these thick walls. Everyone's telling me that I have to build up these thick walls and boundaries. And you're not going to feel good building up thick walls and boundaries. You're not going to feel good living this kind of inauthentic, not giving lifestyle. Inauthentic as in you're not sharing and giving so much of yourself and your sensitivity, and you're kind of guarding your emotions. You don't want to feel too guarded. It's not authentic to yourself if you're feeling too guarded. But you do want some semblance of boundaries. You don't need to put a great wall of China between you and helping other people.
And you feel like any little bit is putting a great wall of China.
What's like the bare minimum? A passcode. A closed sign every once in a while on the door.
This is somebody who I feel like you're either fully addicted to drugs or you're completely sober. And you very much know that you can't do the whole, every now and then, it's fun and casual. I did this once in high school. Like, no. You're either fully in or you are completely sober, because you cannot do one or the other.
Yeah, and if you're sober, it's because you know that if you go in just a little bit, it will consume you and take up your entire life.
Exactly. And just in general, you hold a lot of power in the sense you can really heal people and heal collective trauma and wounds and really teach peace to the world and bring peace to the world. And you do have almost like a little bit of a superpower in you, but if you're able to use it correctly and productively and in a positive way.
Back to substance abuse. The 12th house is very karmic. You might be one of those people who won't go in just a hair because you know that it will consume you, and that might come from a very tangible karmic thing, as in like you might have a family history. And so you can be like, I can see where my life is going to lead down if I follow in the footsteps of my father, because our ancestors' karma is also our karma. We are our own ancestors.
In the womb, you might even be like a drug baby, like your mom might have abused substances while you were in the womb, and so you came into this life hooked on to something. Maybe your mom was very spiritual, did a lot of meditating, or just a very emotional time for her. Or maybe it just came at the wrong time and she wasn't ready to be responsible for you, and so she dealt with you in the only way that she knew how, and it just wasn't the most structured way kind of situation. Or she was just very into holistic things and spirituality while she had you. We are now in the final position.
Oh my god, Shaina, after this it's over.
I know, I'm so excited.
Okay, Pluto in the 12th house.
Dun dun!
Oh, poor Lola, she's scared now. I scared her away. The 12th house is the house that is very subconscious. So when you have such a powerful planet as Pluto in there, you, on the one hand, have this deep inside subconscious security and power and understanding that you are powerful, and understanding of your dominance deep down inside of you once you get to it. But it lives in your subconscious. Likely in the earlier years of your life, that part of you was made to be put away and hidden. You were given a key and you didn't find out what that key was for, and they're like, you will know when you're older. And then when you grew older, you're like, this is the key to unlock my sense of power. But you can go through periods of your life where you're not at all in touch with your own sense of power. You feel that you are completely helpless to the circumstances of the world, to the circumstances of your fate, and you feel helpless. You feel like you can't do anything, that you're not in control at all, because Pluto has a lot to do with control. And you have to go on a bit of a spiritual journey and evolve yourself spiritually in order to recognize your personal power. If you have energy in the 12th house, whatever's going on in there is kind of a roadmap to the purpose of your spiritual journey. Everyone has one, right? Whether you know it or not, everyone has a spiritual journey. And what's going on in your 12th house is, what is your your spiritual journey about? Your spiritual journey is worthy of a movie, right? It's about unlocking your personal power. It's not about like learning how to converse with other people and communicate a message to the world. They can't make a movie out of us. They can make a YouTube channel, but you make a movie.
Just in general, you have a very, very intense life. And when you were in the womb, there was just a lot of power struggles. Your mom might have witnessed abuse while you were in the womb of some sort, or had her power taken away. This is really extreme, but your mom might have been like raped, and that's how you were put into this world, or raped while she was pregnant, or just going through a lot of shit. It was a very intense, transformative experience for her. This could be a positive thing. Maybe your Pluto's beautifully aspected in the 12th house, and she went through this intense, transformative spiritual experience when she had you, and she was like, wow, motherhood is what I need. But whatever it was, she was not the same person after she had you.
If anyone knows, plenty of people know Colleen Ballinger and the story of her pregnancy. His birth time isn't on the internet as far as I know, but I would assume that her baby has Pluto in the 12th house, because Colleen would say throughout her entire pregnancy and after it that she was in a lot of physical pain throughout her pregnancy, that it was a traumatic experience, that it was something so traumatic that she doesn't want to ever go through it again. And a lot of mothers say like, oh, after you have it, you forget about the pain altogether. And she's like, no way, I'm never going through that again. It was very traumatic and very painful, but the experience of actually having her baby was not painful. It was only when he was in the womb. That could be an experience that your mother went through. I mean, maybe it is as dramatic as everything that Shaina said, but it won't necessarily be. It can be arbitrarily traumatic.
Exactly, yeah.
Where it's just very painful
and uncomfortable
for no real tangible reason, or maybe there are tangible reasons. Maybe you like broke your mom's pelvis.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Marilyn Monroe had this placement. You know, we think of her as this plutonic icon almost subconsciously, and Neptune, which she had in the first house, right? All the parts she played were very sexual and very much like, I'm marrying this man for money, very plutonic themes, and those are the kind of things she expressed in the movies, the 12th house, right? But in day-to-day, she probably felt like she had none of that, and that's why she created this character that embodied all those plutonic characteristics.
And all of her sexuality and all of that feminine power that she exuded was never for her own purpose. It was never actually in her own power. I think Pluto in the 12th house very much represents sex work, because it is about giving up your personal power, your personal agency over the most intimate parts of yourself, your sexuality, to other people, because the 12th house is boundless and it is Piscean, so it gives and gives and gives to other people. On the one hand, it can take away your power very much. It can leave you extremely stripped and hurt and unpowerful and helpless. On the other hand, your sexuality is a big tool for how you can assert your own personal power. That's a lot of where the debate of sex workers and how to treat them comes about, is like, obviously you need to respect sex workers. You can't not respect them because they do sex work. I know someone in personal experience who got into sex work because this messaging was empowering to her and she wanted to empower herself. And so she wanted to get into sex work to empower herself because it was something appealing. It was something Lilith-like and Plutonian that resonated with her. And when she got into sex work, she realized that it wasn't necessarily all of that messaging, or not, at least not for everyone, where you are very much in your power of your sexuality and you're doing this for yourself. A lot of times you are having your boundaries crossed and forfeiting your power and having other people overtake your power and engulf your power.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a major position with a possibility towards rape or molestation, because that's just kind of all the themes of this, and then it lives in your subconscious because you can't talk about it to anybody and you just have to live with it inside you. Now, I think with a lot of males with Pluto in this 12th house, the kind of trope that I think is, if it's not conjunct the ascendant, because it'd be very different if it's conjunct the ascendant, these are males that you feel like they don't have any of those power issues within them. Like, they don't have this toxic masculinity. I know somebody who has this, and my friends always tell me how he's pegged as like one of the good guys, right? This is kind of like that kind of thing. And it very much can be, like, because these people go through such evolutions in their life. So these people give the vibe of they don't have any of that kind of toxic masculinity, toxic plutonic stuff, but they do. It's all in their subconscious, and they try to trap it away because they know how kind of negative it is and how much it just kind of lives within them. So these people can have very, very scary thoughts, can go to the depths of hell with their brain, and just deviant sexual thoughts and tendencies and stuff, but very much locked away and hidden. So it can come out randomly. So these people can have major power struggles in their life. This might be somebody who is like, I don't need power, it's not blah, 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 very like dormant, and then every now and then it comes out, and these people can get very mad and be very much like, I never get power, I never get to say what I want to do, I'm always pegged as the bad guy, and it'll just kind of explode out of nowhere, and it feels like it's out of nowhere, but to the person, it's that they've been pushing it down for so long. This made me think about a situation that happened with Nina, and I think this guy might have had Pluto in the 12th house. We went to this Halloween party, and he was dressed up as Marty McFly. And he was a very much kind of like chubby nerd, like very much did not give any Pluto energy at all. No sexuality to them, very innocent seeming, right? He gave Nina a drink.
I essentially came to the conclusion that I was roofied because after one drink, I was an absolute vegetable.
Yes.
I needed to be dragged out of there.
It was very scary, and luckily me and somebody else were there to take care of her, but she very much probably got roofied by this Marty McFly guy. And to me, that is a very big example of Pluto in the 12th house, because he does not have that frat guy, plutonic image that you would expect of who you get roofied by. It was very much like tee-hee-hee, chubby, little awkward kid, but probably had Pluto in the 12th house, and so probably got a hold of something and was acting upon this impulse that has laid dormant within him for so long.
And the drink, just to clarify, came from his own personal tumbler that he was not drinking out of. That's why, you know, it seems very suspicious. Another reason that your toxic masculinity might not show up as much is because your trauma is all very much subconscious. Someone with Pluto in the 12th house doesn't necessarily portray themselves to be someone with all these power issues, with all these kind of possessive tendencies, Hades energy. Oh God. So you don't portray yourself to be that kind of person. People don't see you as someone with that kind of energy because it is all subconscious. So it does come out in sneaky ways. The 12th house is also the house that very much rules fantasies. Pluto in the 12th house basically spells out sexual fantasies. Someone that you would never expect to have the sexual fantasies that they have until you get into that place of trust and they reveal other sexual fantasies. Once I was walking up and down West Hollywood, and my friend and I were walking together, and we ran into this random guy, but he was in a nice collared shirt. He looked so put together. He was one of those people who, like, you wouldn't even necessarily think at first that he was gay. I didn't know this guy, but they were like, oh, long time no see, hey, how are you? And after that, and then he walked away and we walked in this direction, and my friend turns to me, he's like, that guy has the weirdest sexual fantasies you would ever imagine. And then he went into detail about what those were. I was like, thanks, Justin.
I only know males with this placement, and what I found in them have this mentality of males are so bad, males are so toxic, because in their head, they're kind of aligning them being male with them having Pluto in the 12th house. Oh, I know the crazy fantasies that my mind can go to. And so these people are usually much more attracted to girls in the sense of wanting to have children that are female, not wanting to have males, because they don't want their child to have the thoughts that they have. Wanting to be around females because they don't like that thought that these males are having the thoughts that they're having, because they're so grossed out by them. They don't like it. They're shoving it so much in their subconscious that they'll surround themselves with females because it makes them much more comfortable, because in their head, you know, they're not having these thoughts when in reality, it's just the Pluto in the 12th house thing.
Pluto is very much more of a masculine energy. It's the Hades versus Persephone, male versus female, and Pluto is that male archetype. Pluto is very much that kind of male dominance archetype. So when it shows up in men in the 12th house, it is very much a rejection of toxic masculinity, of things that are negatively associated with men, because Pluto is no walk in the park. It is a malefic energy. It is not something that you want to pat yourself on the back and be like, hey, I have this and I'm proud of it. If you have it and you're proud of it, it's just because you literally can't control it. But if it's in the 12th house, you can control control it, and you can repress it, and you can have it live in your subconscious. So that's how it shows up in males. In females, it's more of this situation of really feeling like something is taken away from you.
Yeah, you're much more of a victim with a female, unfortunately.
It's more of taken away from you, repressed in you.
Yeah. Major trauma, major karma, you don't know where it's coming from, but my God, does it come and hit you. You probably have some possibly very bad, very intense, spiraling drug experiences if you do try things, and I feel like you will, because Pluto in the 12th house loves to get to the depths of hell and back.
I think this is also the type of person who will specifically want to be on drugs to have sex.
Yes.
Or will want to have sex when they're on drugs. And those two kind of go hand in hand for you, or they might if you're at all in that realm of doing that kind of thing.
Or it can also go the opposite way, to where trauma does that thing where you might have used to love having sex or doing these drugs and you had all these great experiences, but then trauma comes in within the realms of the 12th house of those kinds of things, and now you have no sexual ability on drugs. Now all your drug experiences are bad because that trauma is triggered every single time you get intoxicated.
Or you avoid it. You don't engage in that. You hide it away. You don't engage in either sex, or you don't engage in substance use. You don't engage in either, or you keep the two mutually exclusive, you know, all those different options.
Even a situation where drugs can bring out your depression, drugs can bring out all this negative bad stuff in you, and it's very scary, and so because you want to keep it locked away, you're very careful about what you do when. The way to, I don't know if solve is the right word, or
unlock your personal power?
Yes. Once you get to that point, you can give up your Pluto, and when you give it up willingly, not forcibly, not because somebody's taking it from you, but because you go, you know what, I'm dissolved of the need for power, I'm dissolved of the need for all these plutonic things, is when you become the most enlightened, like almost inspirational and strong human being, and you can unlock something to where you do not need physical things to make you feel like you're a full person. You do not need X, Y, or Z. All you need is yourself to feel complete. And that probably comes from a whole life of feeling like you don't own yourself, like you don't own anything, like nothing is yours, like you've given up your power, and to finally transforming. Because this position can lead to somebody who has this obsessive craves and need for power and almost domination, where you feel like you need to be the world's dictator to be fulfilled. Once you go through all that platonic experience, probably go through a lot of, you know, metaphorical deaths in your being, you can come out the other side and realize that all you need is yourself and to own yourself, and as long as you have that, you are full and complete.
Yeah, Pluto is a lot about letting go. The 12th house, you're not necessarily holding anything that's in your 12th house. So when Pluto is in the 12th house, you need to come to terms with healthily accepting and acknowledging and holding your personal power and your Pluto, and when you do that, then you can let it go. Because there is a healthy manifestation of Pluto in the 12th house and an unhealthy manifestation. The unhealthy manifestation is that repression, that hidden trauma, and the healthy manifestation is giving up that need for domination and power and dictatorship and being at peace and spiritual.
This might even be a situation where you're the odd one out as far as the power goes. Like, you're the oldest one, you're the only male, you're the only female, you're the only X, Y, or Z. And so because of that, then you are the person that's pinpointed as the one who holds the power, if that makes sense. Like, if you're the older one and you're constantly surrounded by a bunch of young people, they're going to always be like, you're the person with the power, right? But then that, in Pluto in the 12th house, that can make the opposite be true, to where if you express any sort of dominance, the group, the collective, is like, hey, you're just doing that because you're the only old one here. Hey, you're just doing that because you're the only male here. You can't do that. And that can be where that repression comes from, is because I don't want to be seen as the bad guy. I don't want to be seen as the power-hungry person, so I can't show this at all, even though I'm obviously in a position of power. This is probably more of Pluto conjunct the ascendant in the 12th house than just in the 12th house.
I just read a book called Conversations with Friends. Shout out to everyone who dropped book recommendations on my Instagram when I asked for them. I had mixed feelings about the book overall, but there was this really insightful quote in it that I think is very Pluto in the 12th house, and it was this girl calling out the main character, who's a drag, in the book, and she says that you put yourself in situations with people who are more powerful than you so that you don't ever have to think that you can hurt other people.
You also might have a lot of near-death experiences or just a lot of toying with the idea of suicide. Also, I find that these people like to sleep in like almost like a cave-like environment. You need a pitch black room, and that's because you want to recreate like that cold, dark experience of like being in the womb. So you want to like sleep in that
Was
environment.
your experience in the womb cold and dark?
I mean cold is in like empty.
Yeah.
Desolate, yeah. You need to know everything, and this is somebody who has a lot of secrets, and if it's conjunct your ascendant, probably those secrets are out in everybody's business and you do not want them to be. People might even have a incorrect idea of who you are. That's just the projection of Pluto conjunct my ascendant in the 12th house. I don't do any of those things. I just come across as though I do all of those things, when in reality I'm very cautious and careful, you know?
Yeah. Your subconscious is troubled. So there's a bit of that metaphor that I use with the cave all the time. When you're subconscious in your own little sanctuary, and who you are in your headspace when you put your head on the pillow at night is so dark and troubled and wrought with your own traumas, it then becomes that comfortable place. You might find yourself retreating to your own little sanctuary in your mind because that cave is where your eyes have adjusted to, and that the light burns your eyes if you get out of that cave.
And also there might be a lot of shame and embarrassment when you step out. These people possess a very quiet, raw, sometimes aggressive, and very obsessive sexuality. This is also somebody who is probably very, very monogamous, or at least wants the idea of a monogamous relationship. And because you don't trust anybody, you only want to either give up your power to one person, one very specific person, and you want them to then in turn give up their power to you. So then it's just this union where you have this mutual kind of, we are the only people who own each other kind of. Because Pluto does need to give itself up. And Pluto is very one person. This is an intense sexual experience, and it's deep and emotional, and I only want to experience it with one person.
This is sort of a tangent, but it makes sense that you'd see this placement in a pattern of gay men, because it is this repression of your sexuality and your personal power and all of that. And
masculinity.
And having that live in your subconscious and kind of knowing it all along in your subconscious, but only coming to terms with it and finding out about it as you kind of grow up in the world, and then you don't necessarily, especially people who are our age, don't see an example of your type of sexuality being portrayed anywhere else but in your own head. And then there is this correlation of men in the gay community having sex on drugs.
That's true. Poppers, baby.
Yeah. So there's a little interesting correlation.
This also deals with a lot of like black magic, dark magic, having very powerful hidden enemies. Most soulmates are actually in reality hidden enemies, and much more gears towards that side, unfortunately. Have jealous and controlling partners. Very psychic and in tune, because it's Scorpio and Pluto combined. My God. Also paranoia. Might be to the point where you create your own craziness of what's going on in reality. Nothing's happening, but it's probably because past stuff that happened in past relationships, and you're like, this is going to happen now because everything repeats itself. You just find a lot of repetitious, negative, plutonic patterns in your relationships. People lying to you, you lying, cheating, this, that, and so forth.
Yeah, your fears are based off of this subconscious ingrained from your past. You're bound to think that everything is going to repeat itself, even if it's completely not in line with reality.
This is almost a placement where you can't trust yourself, because you don't know what you're capable of, you don't know what you're gonna do. These are the kind of people that, because their Pluto is trapped away, they don't want to show intense emotions to people. They also don't want to make people deal with their intense emotions or their intense issues or whatever trauma or issues they're going through. And so these are people that will probably, unless it's conjunct their ascendant, but even so, rarely cry. And when they do, it's almost terrifying for the people around them, because you're like, they're that in distress. Like, they're that sad. They're that depressed that they literally can't even hide it anymore. They have to show it, and that means that they're really, really, really having trouble. If you have this placement, you need to sit yourself down, dig as deep as you can go, and just unearth all that scary, terrifying stuff that you do not want to confront.
That's your homework.
That is your homework.
You need to get that out of the way so
Yeah.
it doesn't fester up in your subconscious
Yes.
and cause troubles.
Because in your head, you're like, I just need to never let it out. Because once I let it out, then it'll all be horrible, and I don't want anybody to know all this crazy shit I've trapped away. People know. People can sense it. This is very much a placement where people feel it, and they can tell that you've got some stuff going on. And no matter how much you hide it, it's obviously there. If you are able to confront it within yourself and talk about it with a therapist or with somebody that is close enough to you but detached enough from you, from your situation, to where you can really delve deep, it's what you need to do. You need to unearth these problems and confront them head on. You cannot live with it festering, or else you might act out in very scary situations or self-destruct and kind of ruin your life and everybody else's life that is close to you because of your refusal to acknowledge these things within you.
I'm a very visual person. So when I think about the 12th house, I have an image in my head. It's like purple clouds is what the 12th house is.
That's true.
And so when you look at the 12th house and you have all of your issues in the 12th house as a Pluto in the 12th house, connect the dots. 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And so you look at your 12th house and all of your trauma. It's this giant image of purple clouds and dark and stars and stuff, and then you have all of the little dots that you have to connect to piece together your trauma, and you're like not going to connect them because also your dots don't have the numbers on them. And what you've got to do is figure out the numbers and connect them, and then it will be so much more manageable.
Because these people hang on to things. Pisces, Scorpio, you hang on to things. And so you don't want to admit it, but all of your issues probably have to do with like your first crush that you had that broke your heart. You know what I mean? And so from then on, all of your patterns, because this person broke your heart, you're now just going to do all these self-destructive behaviors to make sure that you're not in that situation again, and then it's just detrimental to everybody. And you don't want to admit that, but my God, can it be traced back to just when you were a little kid and XYZ happened, and it seemed small, but my God, did it affect you, and did it imprint on you more than you'd like to admit.
Yeah, and Pluto and Scorpio is very good at problem solving and digging down deep into the situation and psychoanalyzing and all of that. But the 12th house, it's very hard to be very practical and 1, 2, 3, and this leads to that to the other. So Pluto in the 12th house is not the most conducive space to psychoanalyze yourself and figure out why your issues are the way they are. So it just takes a little more effort and a little more like, let me dive into my subconscious. And you'll find that it's very fun once you try, because Pluto likes to do that.
Yeah, you're just very smart and you can learn a lot about yourself and other people. It is another position of being a therapist for somebody, but never getting the therapy for yourself as well. Good luck with if you Pluto in the 12th house. And good luck if you have any of these placements.
Good luck if you have a birth chart.
Yeah, good fucking luck. You're screwed, because we all are. We're finally done with the 12th house videos, and we are now done with the entire series.
Thank you everyone for coming along this journey with us.
Yes.
It's been such a wild ride.
Our next videos, I want to do some light,
So,
quick,
you
short
guys,
videos.
You have got some light content
On the
coming
way.
your way.
If you have any light suggestions,
Oh,
nothing heavy. We don't
my
want to.
God,
We don't want to
no.
see Lilith's series right now.
Not
we want to
right
see
now.
ha ha he he astrology tag,
Popcorn fluffy content.
party trick astrology
Real
content.
party tricks coming your way. 2020 is the year of fun, my dude.
Yes.
It's the roaring 20s up in here.
Unless you're in the astrology course, it's gonna get intense
yeah,
and deep.
you're in the astrology course. Sorry.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this series as much as we did it. No, I'm kidding. It was a good
No,
series.
we really enjoyed this
We really
series.
did.
I've learned so much as a person.
Dude, so much
Yeah.
growth spiritually, personally,
Understanding life.
astrologically, and
The universe only gives you like true insights when you have a purpose for them.
That's true. Is it? I don't know.
I don't
Words.
know. know. That's what
We're
I
done.
feel like.
I'm brain dead. We're gonna end this video.
Merry
Is that cool?
Christmas.
Oh, happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy birthday to me soon. January 8th. Happy
New
Capricorn
Year.
season.
Happy Capricorn season. Happy
Everything.
Kwanzaa. Happy
New
Super
Year.
Bowl. And then after the Super Bowl, happy Nina's birthday.
Yes.
Happy Taurus season.
Can we end this?
Happy 4th of
Shut
July.
the fuck up. You will see us in the next video
Yes.
if you choose to watch it. Goodbye.
Bye.